Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the critically acclaimed Pop the Trunk Podcast Hall of Fame. Recency bias radio, where no one is safe from criticism. Now Patreon exclusively sponsored. I am, of course, your humble host, Dave Smith, Pretty Boy Smitty, Protocol Paul, Pearl Game Ultra, Smith Dog Trail, The Rant God, Hotep Thanos, Metro Kaiba, all of the above on that ISET test, and ACT. You know what it is. Here to bring you all my 21st Big Brother 22 Allstars Rant, entitled Rogers Revenge. Because, ladies and gentlemen, Davon Rogers has come to play. Ladies and gentlemen, in this rant, I'm going to try my best to fully freestyle this thing because I'm tipsy off some margaritas. I've been watching feeds the last couple of hours waiting for feeds to come back. And then I just happened to hit the live button and find out Davon's won Veto. Oh, we got to talk that hot shit tonight, coach. We got to talk it. Because, ladies and gentlemen, after Bailey Dayton was wrongfully projected to be this bitter juror member, okay? The way that she was framed to be something that none of these people have gotten to know her well enough to know who she would be at the end of the day, the way Bailey was done grimy, it left all black fans that follow this show with a bad taste in their mouth, ladies and gentlemen. I only gave as many public rants as I gave last week out of respect to the two sisters that was in the game because I saw the con game weeks ago. So it was only right that I was the main person preaching what I've been preaching. But now all of that transitioned to Thursday night, where I, of course, did the rant. And during that rant, ladies and gentlemen, we all live witnessed Dani winning an HOH she did not have to win, ladies and gentlemen. I was one of the few people who brought up to all of you all that Dani was stupid to win that HOH. I mean, if the last two people besides yourself for an endurance HOH win are Cody and Nicole, your two allies, throw it to one of them, Dani. At the end of the day, you have a twist that will allow one of them to compete again in the double eviction. All the spotlight will be placed upon that player who has to get through this minefield of a week. I thought it was fairly self-explanatory that Dani had to throw that HOH to Cody or Nicole. So for her to not go through with throwing the HOH to Cody or Nicole, all of us then jumped to the conclusion, okay, Dani is going for her power play move to justify her resume winning the game at the end by essentially going for the HOH no one wanted, using her twist, then competing for the double eviction HOH to try to dictate who goes during that one as well. Now, to a certain extent, I get that, but as I'll get to breaking this down, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, I personally believe she made a huge mistake because she wins HOH, and now she's like, who am I going to throw up? The only two people that come to her head are Kevin and David, more anti-black based gameplay and strategy, but at the end of the day, she already promised Davon she would be safe this week. So she's between a rock and a hard place. She can't break her word to Davon, or else she's going to look anti-black as racist as Christmas looked a week ago after Christmas betrayed Bailey after Bailey attempted to get close to Christmas. So because Dani is aware of how she will be perceived, ladies and gentlemen, she is playing this week with kid gloves trying to prove she's the good white person that Christmas wasn't. But trying so hard to prove that, you're just falling into the same trap by throwing up two black people once again for no reason. Now, I understand how the game is played. I know the numbers are on one side and they all happen to be conveniently white people. And I know all the numbers on this other side happen to be three black people. But at the end of the day, all the people that defend Ian, they never talk about how Ian is so comfortable with that side. They never talk about how Ian kisses the ass of the same people who shits on him. No one talks about that. They just try to make it seem like Ian doesn't have no choice. No, Ian had a choice a long time ago, but he had chose to throw several comps to make sure he didn't have to stand up for himself. So he put himself in this position to be mistreated. When it comes to these black people, they were lumped to be together simply because they were black. Nothing more, nothing less. So when I see people on social media trying to change the narrative to sweep the racism under the rug by implying Kevin and David have a final two deal. Wrong. You're not following feeds. And do you notice how the majority of these trolls, they have burner accounts that they just created just to troll black fans? Ladies and gentlemen, we need to just block these people and not focus on them. And I'm only going to focus on them for as little as I am during this rant, just to put y'all on code with that mission statement. But outside of that, ladies and gentlemen, essentially the way the strategy is going is Dani, she does one-on-ones with everyone. Christmas is trying super hard to keep Dani from ever throwing up Tyler, which does nothing but raise red flags in Dani's mind that Christmas has a final two with Tyler. And then when Kevin came to talk to Dani, he told her that about what he told Davon about how he read the lips of Julie Chen on Thursday night's eviction episode when Julie happened to mention a few people who were linked together. Now, technically, Julie mentioned Dani and Christmas then. I think what Kevin did was, I think he remixed the story he told Davon, and instead of saying Dani and Christmas, because Dani's HOH, he said Christmas and Tyler had a final two. I think that was very smart on Kevin's part. Now, it didn't save him, because he still got thrown up, and with friends like that, who needs enemies? You got Dani talking about, oh, I truly care for Kevin outside of this game. I actually want to be friends with him outside of this, but at the end of the day, I can't afford to make any of the mistakes I made during BB13, because then I will just be sent home that following week. And because the majority of these players know a double eviction is impending, the majority of them, it seems like production has even confirmed that there will be some sort of a double eviction next Thursday. I think it is impacting the gameplay this week. I think more aggressive play is more conservative because of the twist as it is, but then when you add the fact that everyone's trying to hold on to whatever power they have for the double eviction that they think is coming, that creates even more paranoia. So this is why Dani decided to play so conservative by nominating two black men, because at the end of the day, she's looking at it, the odds of Kevin and David having a twist, having a power, are exponentially lower compared to all these other players who have won stuff. So it's very funny going through the first couple of days of feeds when you're behind, knowing that David is going to use his power and piss all these people off, to see all of them completely disregard him. I mean, I'm watching conversations between Tyler and Dani where they essentially, I think Tyler was the first one to tell Dani he thought that David or Kevin could have a power. Dani shut it down, but they both agreed if David does have a power, he's keeping that secret to his grave and he's telling no one. So imagine my surprise to see all of these people so butthurt when a black player decides to keep a secret for themselves. You know, you all held it against Bailey that she wouldn't keep her untouchable secret to herself. Christmas used that against her to justify sending her out the damn door. But if David has a power that he earned in the pitch black, which was the same type of comp that sent him home during BB21, and he decides to keep that to himself, these people take it personal. So this goes back to what I've always said. When a black person plays the game well, they're hated by white people. When they play it bad, they're clowned by white people. When they try to trust white people, they're clowned by white people. And then when a black player just decides to do whatever they want and not care what you think, they're still hated for it. So at the end of the day, all the people who say Bailey and Davon put themselves in that position, they're full of crap, because David found himself in this position and he's nowhere near as threatening as those two. So it just goes to show, if a black person in any way, shape, or form is not your puppet to use, you hate them. It's that simple. But instead of y'all owning up to this, y'all keep using projection to justify what you're doing because you're worried you're going to lose opportunities outside the house. And because production decided to notify Nicole of all the sponsorships that she has lost, now she's going around the house moping around to the point where when they start bullying on someone else, Nicole's the one all of a sudden trying to be the voice of reason, trying to calm them down. It's interesting. When you start losing some money, then all of a sudden you want to be pro-black. When you start losing some business opportunities, all of a sudden you want to be less racist. But if it wasn't for that negative reinforcement, you would see nothing wrong with all the things you did beforehand, meaning you are insincere even now. You've only been humbled now because you see there are consequences for your actions. And that's the problem Tyler has. He has not gotten hit with any real game consequences from what he did because Christmas covered it up and Grodner gave him the conjugal visit and he busted a few nuts. So because of that, ladies and gentlemen, Tyler legitimately goes up to Dani and he tries to blame Bailey for why he tried to self-evict. Remember, a week ago, he tried to tell all of us he just wanted to be with Angela. He made it seem like he was just simping for some pussy. That's how he made it seem. Then all of a sudden, Bailey leaves, and then it becomes, oh, well, I wasn't as loyal to the committee as I should have been because Bailey was here. Bailey wasn't in the committee alliance. How the hell does Bailey impact your loyalty to an alliance she was excluded from selectively by Dani, and replace with Christmas to join in? How the hell does Bailey impact anything you do with that alliance when she isn't even privy to its existence? Ladies and gentlemen, we were watching Thursday night's episode. Julie told Bailey about that alliance for the first time. Bailey didn't know about it. So how the hell can Tyler use his lack of loyalty to an alliance Bailey doesn't even know of as an excuse to bash Bailey for even more? Have you all noticed how quickly he forgot about the same movement he claimed to care about just a week ago? Now all of a sudden, he's not only throwing Bailey under the bus, he's asking Dani to throw up Davon this week. So that shows you in a nutshell how full of shit that entire play he tried to pull last week, that shows you in a nutshell, for all we know, production was in on it with him. For all we know. Actions speak louder than words, and the way he has gone about following up that action, that inaction, has shown us a lot about your character. But we already knew that about him. But yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, so essentially, David and Kevin were thrown up on the block. Cody is now becoming more okay with Tyler leaving because even he is starting to notice he's getting too close to Christmas. But Cody right now wants Dani fixated on the black players because Cody is worried if they start eating their own, it'll turn into a civil war, and then these black people will be on the outskirts and peripheral, and they'll be allowed to skate by and make Final Six or something. That's a huge fear of Cody's. I don't know why he assumes that they would have the political or pivoting prowess to be able to pull that off, but it just goes to show the fear of a black winner on this season is astronomical. Like, the fear of giving a black person any positive momentum in the game is so crazy to me because they do not fear any white person getting this. But they fear when a black person gets it. But at the end of the day, if you've done your job of proving yourself to be an ally, you shouldn't be one of the two nominees if that black person wins power. So what are you even nervous about? You should want someone to trim down the numbers in your dominant alliance without you having to do it yourself. You should want that. I thought that was the reason why Dani kept Davon around, so Davon could be her attack dog. So it's clear to me Cody doesn't want any black people around to be attack dogs because he knows if they are going to stick around to be an attack dog, they're coming for him because he's the one the majority of them perceive to be controlling things. So the person in control sees no value in using the black players, even for manipulation. But all of the people underneath him see that value because all of them realize they can't be the one to take Cody out or else he'll poison the jury against them. So we've already seen in less than 3 days since Bailey has been out, we've already gotten enough proof to this jury being bitter already. We've already gotten enough proof. So ladies and gentlemen, so on Friday, Kevin and David hit the block. So I'm pissed because at this point, I'm thinking, wait, David didn't use his twist? What the hell is he doing? I'm thinking the twist had to be used at the nomination ceremony. It turns out the twist automatically activates when you throw up the person with it. So all David had to do was wait for a house meeting to be called by production. Allegedly, there was some female voice that was real bizarre that was explaining the twist. She kept the twist anonymous, which is important because it allowed David to act like he didn't use it on himself, and right now David is kind of making it seem like Christmas used it on him, which is great because the majority of people think Christmas has a power, and if they are starting to believe Christmas may have used it on him, this is also good for all the other black players. This helps Davon out. This helps Kevin out. Even if Kevin might want to work with Christmas, he doesn't know how racist Christmas truly is, and deep down Kevin is a little bit in a sunken place and he has a little bit of self-hate. But at the end of the day, this is good for every black player that remains. The fact that it might be up in the air a bit that David didn't use it on himself. Now, the average white person is very skeptical. They believe David used it on himself. They believe David isn't smart enough to pull off this lie for much longer. This is what leads to Memphis admitting on feeds that he spoke to Rich Meehan, who is an executive producer of this show, along with Allison Grodner. I don't know if y'all remember this, but I had a rant once upon a time where I talked about, I think it was called Production Ain't Shit, and it had Rich Meehan standing next to Allison Grodner in the thumbnail. That's them two, okay? So understand, ladies and gentlemen, Rich Meehan, he's also part of the systemic issue with this season, and he should be fired along with Grodner. Because for him to go over to Memphis and tell him it's perfectly okay to intimidate another player to get answers out of them, ladies and gentlemen, what game are we playing here? Like, real shit. Is this Scared Straight? Or is this Big Brother? See, people keep trying to tell us it's just gameplay, but intimidation isn't just gameplay. Intimidation is personal. You see that? See, whenever a white person dives into the personal, they get to play the it's just game card. Whenever a black person dives into the game portion, they're told they're playing personally because they figured out the game. We can never win with these people. We can never win. So essentially, what went down over feeds. Now, I don't know if this happened on feeds, but I heard people retell this story, so I know it happened. Several people have confirmed this. After the twist was used, David was sitting at a table or something. Memphis walks up behind him and he hits the shit out of his shoulder from behind and says, "You popped your cherry. You won a comp. Congrats, man." Now understand, ladies and gentlemen, Memphis clearly hit that dude pretty hard for even Cody to admit that it was excessive. For Rich Meehan to allow Memphis to continue with an intimidation-based gameplay, it really ticks me off. Because if Ian was the one that Memphis asked to intimidate, I bet you Rich Meehan would say no. But because it's a black person, go ahead, do what you want. And this is why I had a problem with people speaking up for Ian, because when it's time to speak up for somebody black, they get quiet real fast, yo. Super fast. And this is irrefutable at this point. So understand, ladies and gentlemen, these white folks are super butthurt about the idea that David won a twist they couldn't win in the dark. They're super butthurt he was smart enough and has learned enough not to tell anyone. And now they're even blaming Davon. Now they're saying, Davon had to have known about this. Trust me, she definitely did. Even Dani, the girl who's trying to tell us that she loves Davon. You know, you got Christmas coming out the woodwork. This is why I wanted Bailey gone. You see how friendly Davon is with everyone now that she doesn't have to be distracted by Bailey. So essentially, they're trying to say Bailey was a negative influence over a black woman older than her? That doesn't even make any fucking sense. But they will say whatever they can to justify this shit. And now Dani, she's portraying herself to be Davon's protector. Oh, those white people did Davon so bogus. Under the guise and under the orders of Dani. But we're going to sweep that under the rug in the edit. Oh, look how great Dani is. She really helped Davon. She really helped lift her up from such a sunken place. She's such a good ally. That's what they want us to assume, ladies and gentlemen. But let's not forget, Dani was the one who bashed Davon for her religious views. And then after Nicole lose her sponsorship, Davon's the one praying with Nicole in the storage room to help her get her head back in the game. So it just goes to show you, ladies and gentlemen, we constantly turn the other cheek and we're hated by the same people who root for these white folks who rely on the black person to get their shit back in check. Oh, I'm killing this, man. I don't even got to look at the notes. I know I'm killing this shit. So understand, ladies and gentlemen, Dani wants the world to believe she is some ally and she is Davon's protector. Now that Bailey's gone, all of a sudden she sees value in Davon's game. When in reality, they couldn't penetrate the black girl magic because they could understand each other's struggle. Because of that, they were threatened by both of them as a duo. Now with one of them gone, they have done what every Caucasian person in power has done to any black civilization since the Moors have reigned. They have divided and conquered. Make no mistake about this, ladies and gentlemen. And they did the same thing with Davon here. Okay? And see, Cody was the one who wanted Davon gone before Bailey. It was the women who wanted Bailey gone before Davon. But at the end of the day, Cody, Enzo, the majority of the men, they saw that Davon was connected to Kevin in ways Bailey never could be. Even though Bailey was connected to David in ways that Davon could never be, David isn't as good of a player as Kevin was. So the men could see Davon was the long-term bigger threat. Mainly because Davon had the power to work with people the men couldn't really jive well with. Whereas in Bailey's case, she could work with all of the men. And she could work with the women if they weren't racist. So the men, they saw more in Bailey's game. And quite frankly, I thought Bailey had a higher chance of winning the game because of that as well, because there are more men in the jury than women. If you have the men on your side more than the women, the likelihood of you making the end exponentially increases. So all these things matter. Now, I'm saying all this to say this. With Kevin and David on the block, after David uses the twist, now Dani has to replace David with someone. She chooses Tyler. And here's the thing. when Tyler met with Dani on Friday afternoon, before she initially threw up Kevin and David, Tyler made it a point of emphasis with her to make a deal that he won't target her until Final Six. And no. She made a deal with Tyler saying she wouldn't target him to Final Six. He one-upped her and said he wouldn't target her to Final Four. Now, clearly, that's a too good to be true type deal. She ends up reiterating the same conversation to Cody. Now, Cody knows Tyler is full of shit because anyone willing to make a deal like that clearly can't be trusted. But it's important for me to mention this because that deal was created with the idea that neither one would throw each other up. So now that David has used his twist and Tyler was thrown up in David's place, one has to ask the question, does that deal even apply anymore? Or has that deal expired in less than a day? That's what I think. I think that deal has already expired. And I think Tyler is royally screwed in this motherfucker because Davon won Veto. So this dumb fuck tried to use the Black Lives Matter movement for his own personal gain to change his image. He tried to quit because he couldn't take the fact that he tried to screw black people over. Black people witnessed it. Production told him about how the outside game perceives him, the same way they told Nicole about how the outside world perceives her by notifying her about all of the sponsorships that she lost. So are you noticing a pattern here? Only white players are notified about the outside world. Meanwhile, the black players are never told about how they are perceived to impact whether they should try to pander for AFP or not. You see that? So only the white players are allowed to truly pivot on this season with the help of production. 100%. So now that Tyler is on the block, we're all heading into the POV ceremony. The POV competition today. I believe the people who were picked for the POV competition, of course, were Kevin, Tyler, Dani. I believe it was Davon, Enzo, and Ian. I might be wrong with that, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know if I am wrong, but I believe it was those 6. From what I'm being told, it was a timed competition where you had to stack something. That's what I'm being told. And from what I'm being told, Tyler choked. He towards the end, he had potential to win Veto because this was all rigged for Tyler to win. Make no mistake about it. And he choked under pressure. Davon yoked him, wins Veto. So the karma behind Tyler trying to use these black women for personal gain, which in turn led to Bailey going home because of the paranoia that Tyler created, for him to then be forced to suffer now, because now you got to think about this for a second. Dani is worried that Kevin would leave this week if Nam stayed the same. She was worried Kevin would leave this week. If Kevin leaves this week, Dani loses his jury vote. She is very cognizant of the fact that Kevin needs to get off this block, or he needs to get himself off this block, more importantly, so she doesn't have to reveal her cards by choosing between him and Tyler. That would air herself out in front of her alliance. So it's very safe to infer that Dani threw the veto today. Very safe to infer that. If I had to guess, the only people who really wanted to win this thing were Tyler, Kevin, and Davon, which makes it even more impressive that Davon won this, because she's someone who has never won a competition. Here is Tyler, this golden boy they have propped up to be this comp beast, and then under pressure, you lose to the woman who can never win anything? And now y'all know why Christmas is so butthurt. But I can't stress this enough. Davon winning this veto was so important because these white folks were prepared to bully David throughout this entire house all week. They were prepared. But now that Davon has won veto, they are forced to focus all of their attention now on what Davon is going to do. They don't even have enough time to focus on whether or not David used that twist on himself. Because at the end of the day, that's all inconsequential at this point. Because now Tyler is stuck on that damn block regardless. She ain't using that shit on him because that motherfucker tried to weaponize black people's movement against us. So she ain't using that shit on him. Kevin is clearly her ride or die. Dani doesn't want Kevin to go because that costs her a jury vote. All signs point to Davon using the veto tomorrow. Okay? So Dani's not going to talk Davon out of using this veto. Christmas and Tyler are praying to their white god. Boy, hey, they are praying to what's homeboy name? They are praying to Zeus right now. They are praying to what's homeboy name? The god of ravens. I forgot his name. Oh man, homeboy from God of War. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, they are praying to all of their Norse white gods right now. that Davon doesn't use the veto. Christmas right now is trying to plant seeds with people. If Davon uses that veto on Kevin, she has to know that she's gone next week. Bitch, why don't you use your blocker and force her not to take Kevin off then? And here's the thing, Christmas, I thought you liked Kevin. Why are you mad that Davon will save Kevin? We know why she's mad. David's already safe. Davon won veto, she's safe. And if she takes Kevin off, no black person can go home. So the inner racist is creeping out of her pores. Even her sweat smells like MAGA. Let's keep it a bean out here, coach. Smell like straight Miracle Whip when she work out. I will miraculously whip her dumb ass, though, if she keep talking this dumb shit. You feel it, dig me, coach? And that's what they're so butthurt about, ladies and gentlemen. Now it's become obvious to them that this jury's gonna be bitter. Because no black person's going to be the first juror. And if no black person's going to be the first juror, then these white folks have to eat their own prematurely. If they have to eat their own prematurely, and because all of these twists are in play right now, meaning Dani can't really afford to do nothing crazy, Dani now has to pick the most obvious person to go up next to Tyler here. I don't think it will be Ian. Ian is too close to Nicole. Prime 4 have all reconvened, and they seem to be all on the same page again. I think if she throws up anyone next to Tyler, personally, I think it's got to be Christmas. Look, Dani, let's really keep it a bean here. She could throw up a Memphis and be like, oh, you're going to stay. You got a bad back, Memphis. You're going to stay. That might work, but that forces the committee. Actually, if you throw up Christmas, it forces the committee to eat themselves as well. This is why you all were stupid to not include Bailey in the committee. See, if they would have included Bailey in the committee over Christmas and then kept Bailey over Davon, this entire week goes differently even if Bailey wins veto. But because Dani chose to keep Bailey out of the committee, decided to whack Bailey to make Davon grow closer to her, and then Davon wins veto, and she tells Davon she won't touch the block. Now Davon can take Kevin off. Tyler is royally fucked. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, the only way Tyler stays in this game past Thursday is if Rich Meehan and Allison Grodner do some weirdo shit, and they convince someone else to quit this week. That's the only way. That's legitimately the only way I see that Tyler stays, because he has no connections with anyone. Christmas's power can't work for Tyler because he was thrown up initially. I mean, legitimately, this was the perfect scenario to fuck Tyler over. This is the spirit of Ogun, ladies and gentlemen. This is Davon Rogers' revenge coming to fruition. And I couldn't be more happy about this, coach. I couldn't be more happy about this, especially after the week we just witnessed. Especially after last night, noticing all of those people gang up on David, try to corner him, have Memphis be given approval by executive producers to bully and intimidate a black man. This makes us all have to ask more questions about y'all now, production. Did y'all give Jack and that other jack-off Jack that were on season 21, did you give them all permission to intimidate black people the first few weeks too? See, this creates a slippery slope for yourself. And please believe feeds got cut as soon as Memphis admitted to what Rich told him he could do. So that shows guilt. That shows production is trying to hide their evil ways. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm not surprised by any of this. But I tell you this much, I am excited now. Because now that Davon has finally won something, now people can't say she doesn't deserve to be here. Now they can't say, all that time on the challenge and she's learned nothing. I mean, Enzo was bashing her incessantly all the time. I give Enzo credit here and there, but I got to keep it a bean, Enzo. It seems like you got a personal problem with Day. It's to the point now where people on social media are starting to think maybe Enzo had a crush on Bailey. I'm not making this up. Some people believe he had a crush on Bailey, and that's why he hates Davon so much. Because he wanted Bay to stay over her. That's what people are saying right now. Now, I'm not saying I'm believing all of that, but what I am saying is his hatred for Davon, it stems from stuff we don't understand. You know? But But at the end of the day, I had to hold him accountable for that because people have already brought this up. What the fuck would Enzo do if he was on the challenge? Not a damn thing. So at the end of the day, these are a whole bunch of people throwing stones from their glass house. But if they were put through the same stress levels that Davon was put through when she was with Jose or Bear her first couple of seasons on the challenge, I'm pretty sure none of these people would make it half as far as she managed to. So it just goes to show, at the end of the day, black people are judged on an unfair basis. And that's just what it is, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's sad, but it's the truth. But at the end of the day, I am 100% happy about what's going on. I mean, you know, Tyler thought he could just hit the reset button with Dani, tell her a whole bunch of bullshit, blame everything on Bailey because she can't defend herself. Very similar to how Ian tried to blame everything on Kaser because he was out the door a week ago and couldn't defend himself. And what do both of them have in common? They both tried to essentially do some sneaky shit, got caught, and then tried to run back and get into their shell afterwards. But the problem is, Ian, you're a returning champion. I don't tolerate that type of behavior from you. I think it's beta male gameplay. And for Tyler specifically, a dude who believes he was truly robbed, you're coming into this game believing you're a champion too. Both of the tactics both of these white men are able to use in this game, they would not be able to use if they were black. Let's just keep it a bean. You feel it, dig me? You know, David is being treated like garbage for winning a twist, using it, and not admitting to having it. When at the end of the day, if any of these white folks were to use a twist and save someone, even if it was themselves, they wouldn't be thirsty to say they did it either. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't behoove you to volunteer information to people who are racist. It just doesn't. And David was put on code because of the mistakes Christmas made towards Bailey last week. So these people have no one to blame but themselves for David figuring out the game and starting to play harder. It's their fault. Because they decided that 4 black people couldn't be in the jury, now they have to deal with the karma that Ogun has created for themselves. And I love every second of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know this was a pretty short rant compared to what you all are used to. But at the end of the day, not that much action has happened because the initial nominees were reset. Well, half of them were. And then the twist was used. Technically, it was a lot of movement, but it really wasn't because there were only a handful of people they were willing to throw up anyway. Because of that, it's only a handful of real information I can really discuss before the veto ceremony on Sunday. And that's when things will get even more heated. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will be back tomorrow night to give my thoughts. But one thing is for sure, Wednesday night's Veto episode is going to be must-see TV because we're going to see so many casuals crying all over the timeline. So I hope you all have enjoyed the 21st rant of Big Brother 22 All-Stars entitled Roger's Revenge. I'm Dave Smith with Recency Bias Radio, where no one is safe from criticism. Until next time.